Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel, and we are going to read a werewolf story, I guess, and it's completely fiction. Let me make that clear. This story is fiction written by me. Luke. Luke parked his truck at the edge of the woods, the scent of pine and fresh earth wrapping around him like an old friend. He stepped out, stretching his arms above his head, the weight of his city job falling away with each breath of crisp air. "This is what I needed," he murmured, a smile breaking across his weathered face. The hike to his favourite fishing spot was familiar. He ambled along the well-trodden path, the sounds of twigs snapping beneath his boots echoing softly in the stillness. Birds chirped overhead, their songs weaving through the branches, while the gentle babble of a nearby stream played a soothing background tune. After finding the perfect spot by the lake, Luke settled down, casting his line with practiced ease. The sun hung high, glistening off the water's surface, and time slipped away as he waited for the subtle tug of a fish. Hours passed, punctuated by the occasional splash of a catch. "Gotcha!" he exclaimed. Reeling in a modest trout, he grinned, feeling the thrill of the hunt. As the sun began to set, Luke set up camp. He gathered dry leaves and twigs, striking flint until a small fire crackled to life. He skewered the fish on a makeshift stick, the aroma filling the air. Nothing beats a meal cooked over a campfire, he chuckled to himself, savouring the moment. With his belly full, he cracked open a beer, the cold fizzing in his hand. "Cheers to solitude," he toasted, raising the can to the quiet woods. He leaned back against a tree, listening to the comforting sounds of nature, crickets chirping, leaves rustling, and the distant croon of an owl. The stars emerged, twinkling overhead like a cosmic blanket. Luke finished his beer and crawled into his tent, the fabric enveloping him in warmth. Sleep came quickly, lured by the soothing lull of the forest. But the peace was shattered in the darkness. A howl pierced the night, a sound so alien and chilling that it sent a shiver down his spine. "What in the world?" he whispered, eyes wide open in the dark. The sound was guttural and primal, echoing through the trees. Luke held his breath, straining to hear. Is someone there?" he called, his voice wavering. Silence swallowed his words, leaving an unsettling stillness. The howl came again, closer this time, and something deep within him clenched tight. Fear coiled around his chest, squeezing until he struggled to breathe. Branches snapped nearby. Luke's heart raced, pounding in his ears. Stay calm," he muttered, gripping the pistol under his pillow. But his body felt heavy, paralyzed by an instinctual dread he couldn't shake. Then came the unmistakable sound of heavy bipedal footsteps, slow, deliberate. Each step sent a jolt of terror through him, and he finally grasped the flashlight. Come on," he whispered, his fingers trembling as he fumbled with the zipper of the tent. With a deep breath, he stepped outside, the beam of light cutting through the darkness. The forest loomed around him, shadows twisting in the corners of his vision. Suddenly, the beam landed on a massive figure, half hidden behind a tree. Luke's breath caught in his throat, What the hell? His voice barely broke above a whisper as he stared at the creature, its gnarly teeth glistening in the light. A monstrous wolf head rested atop a hulky body, human-like, yet terrifyingly wrong. The growl that escaped its lips vibrated through him, shaking him to his core. "Run!" a voice screamed inside his head, but fear held him captive, his body paralyzed in horror. The werewolf's growl reverberated through the night, a bone-chilling sound that threatened to rip Luke from his paralysis. "Oh, God, what are you?" he gasped, his heart hammering wildly in his chest. The creature stepped forward, its eyes glinting with an intelligence that sent a fresh wave of terror coursing through him. Get back!" he shouted, raising his flashlight like a shield. Stay away!" But the werewolf merely tilted its head, as if amused by his fear, and took another step closer. Thick branches snapped beneath its weight, the sound echoing in the silence of the night. Luke's instincts kicked in. "Oh, run, you idiot!" he screamed at himself, finally breaking free from the grip of fear. He turned and sprinted back towards the path, the flashlight bouncing wildly in his hand. Each pounding step felt like a drumbeat of impending doom. Behind him, the creature followed, its heavy footsteps crunching leaves and breaking branches like twigs. Luke dared not look back, knowing that whatever was chasing him thrived on fear. Just keep going, he told himself. He was pushing himself harder. You can make it. The path blurred into vision, the trees around him a dark, tangled mess. Focus, he gasped, trying to keep his breathing steady. The truck, just get to the truck. He could hear the beast's growls, low and menacing, echoing closer. Why did I come out here? He shouted in the night's frustration, mixed with fear. I should have stayed in the city. The words fell futile, swallowed by the dense forest. Suddenly, the clearing emerged, and the sight of a truck brought a surge of hope. Yes, he cried, sprinting towards it. Almost there. But just as he reached the edge of the clearing, he stumbled, nearly losing his footing. Come on, he panted, regaining his balance as he fumbled for his keys. The thought of the werewolf closing in sent adrenaline surging through him. Hooray! Finally, he found the keys, his hands shaking as he slid them into the ignition. Start! He yelled, twisting the key with a desperate urgency. The engine roared to life, and he quickly slammed the door shut, locking it with a shaky breath. His headlights flickered on, illuminating the trees at the edge of the clearing. There it was, the werewolf, partly hidden behind a tree, its eyes glowing like embers in the darkness. Oh, God, Luke whispered, his blood running cold. The beast stepped into the light, revealing its massive form. What do you want? He shouted, panic rising in his throat. Why are you doing this? The werewolf growled, a deep resonant sound that seemed to vibrate beneath Luke's skin. It took a step forward, and Luke's heart raced. Don't you dare, he yelled, slamming the gear into reverse. His tires screeched as he spun around, tearing down the dirt road. Branches whipped against the sides of his truck, but he didn't care. He just had to get away. Drive, he shouted, adrenaline pumping through his veins. As he sped down the path, the creature's howls echoed behind him, intertwining with the roar of the engine. I won't look back. I won't, Luke promised himself, gripping the steering wheel like it was his lifeline. The road opened up ahead, and with one last burst of speed, he burst onto the main road. The familiar sight of civilization loomed ahead, and he felt a wave of relief wash over him. I'm free, he breathed, glancing in the rearview mirror. The darkness swallowed the forest behind him, but the image of the creature lingered in his mind like a haunting nightmare. Luke drove on, his heart still racing, knowing that the woods held secrets he would never understand. and he would never return for his stuff. Next time, he muttered, I'm sticking to the city. Jane. The air was crisp as Jane set off on a routine run, the rhythmic sound of her feet hitting the dirt path creating a comforting tempo. Just me in the morning, she said to herself. The forest loomed around her, a comforting embrace of tall trees and blooming wildflowers. The sun peeked over the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink. Halfway through her run, however, the atmosphere shifted. She slowed her pace, allowing her to breathe steady. That's when she heard it. A heavy thud, 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 echoing through the brush. Jane halted, peering into the dense undergrowth. Silence enveloped her, an eerie blanket that stifled the usual morning sounds of chirping birds and rustling leaves. Hello? She called, her voice trembling slightly. No answer, just the oppressive quiet, making the hairs on her arms stand on end. Shaking off the unease, she resumed jogging. But as soon as she picked up speed, the footsteps matched her rhythm again. Thud for thud. What the hell? She muttered under her breath, her heart racing. The path that twisted and turned, and with every corner she took, her anxiety mounted. She felt like a deer being stalked as she quickened her pace. The footsteps grew louder, closer, almost haunting her. Sweat trickled down her back, her breath coming in quick bursts. Just a deer, she whispered, trying to reassure herself. It's just a deer. But deep down, she knew it wasn't. She rounded the bend, the trees thinning ahead, and her pulse quickened when she spotted the end of the trail. The residential area was in sight, a beacon of safety. But when she hesitated to look back, she heard it, a guttural growl that sent shockwaves through her body. Run! She screamed, her feet pounding against the ground like a wild drum. Panic surged through her as she sprinted towards the open road, glancing back just once. And what she saw froze her in place. Emerging from the shadows was a massive creature, its fur a blend of black and grey. It dropped down to all fours, then slowly rose, bones cracking and popping with a sickening sound. It stood taller than her, muscles rippling and its eyes glinted with a predatory hunger. Stay back, she shouted, her voice wavering. But it just tilted its head, a twisted smirk stretching across its face as it revelled in her fear. No, 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 she stumbled backward, her breath hitching. The distance between them felt like a chasm, yet she could feel the weight of its gaze, heavy and suffocating. With a surge of adrenaline, Jane turned and fled. The path blurred around her as she raced towards home. She burst through her front gate, collapsing onto the porch, gasping for breath. The world around her felt surreal, the sunlight too bright, the air too thick. Tears streamed down her face, a mix of disbelief and terror. It can't be real, she whimpered, wrapping her arms around herself. I'm safe now. But as she looked back towards the forest, she knew she could never unsee what she had witnessed. The thrill of running had turned into a nightmare, and Jane vowed never to lace up her sneakers again. The forest, once a sanctuary, had become a realm of fear, and she was now a prisoner in her own terror. The village. The moon hung high, a pale guardian in the inky sky, casting ghostly shadows over the village of Eldridge Hollow. It was the stuff of nightmares. Davy stood on his porch, peering into the dark woods that bordered his property. He could feel the tension in the air, a palpable fear that gripped the village since the animals began disappearing. Dad, do you really think it's a werewolf? Daniel asked, his voice steady but edged with anticipation. He leaned against the splintering wooden railing, his green eyes reflecting the moonlight. David exhaled, his breath visible in the crisp night air. Oh, I don't know, son, but the signs are there. The strange howls, the missing pets. It's not a rogue bear. We need to find out what's really going on. A low howl echoed from the forest, sending shivers down their spines. Did you hear that? Daniel's voice was barely above a whisper. Yeah. It's time to investigate, David replied, determination hardening his features. He grabbed his old hunting rifle, the metal cold against his fingers. Let's go. With a shared glance, father and son stepped into the darkness, their hearts pounding like war drums in their chests. The moonlight barely penetrated the thick canopy of trees, creating a tapestry of shadows that danced around them. Do you think Sheriff Cloud is right? Daniel asked, as they navigated underbrush. That it's just a bear. Sometimes the simplest explanations are the hardest to accept. David's voice was steady, but a flicker of doubt crossed his mind. They pressed on, the sound of snapping twigs underfoot echoing in the silence. Hours passed. The forest grew eerily quiet. Suddenly a loud crash resonated through the trees, a desperate yelp, followed by a chilling silence. Did you hear that? Daniel's face paled. Yeah, it came from over there. David pointed, heart racing. Let's check it out. They moved cautiously, their breath shallow. As they crept forward, the low growl of something feral reached their ears. It was deep and resonant, vibrating through the ground beneath them. Dad, Daniel's voice trembled. What if it's really a werewolf? It's just an animal, Daniel. Stay calm, David reassured, though he gripped the rifle tighter. They pushed through a thicket and stumbled into a small clearing. Moonlight illuminated the scene before them. In the centre lay what remained of a goat, its carcass torn asunder. Blood painted the grass, glistening under the moonlight. The air thickened with the metallic scent of death. Ugh, this is worse than I thought, Daniel muttered, swallowing hard. Is that fur? He pointed to the dark patch caught in the branches of the tree nearby. Looks like it, David said, moving closer. This isn't just a bear. Something is hunting these animals. A sudden crash from behind them sent both men spinning around, heartbeats racing. Sheriff Cloud emerged from the shadows, breathless and wide-eyed. What are you two doing out here? He barked, but his voice trembled. We're trying to find the creature responsible for the attacks, David replied. It's not a bear. Just then, a guttural roar erupted from the depths of the forest, cutting through the night. Cloud's eyes widened, fear creeping into his features. That doesn't sound like any bear I've ever heard. The ground beneath them rumbled as the beast charged into the clearing, its eyes glinting with unnatural hunger. It was enormous, fur bristling, fangs glistening like daggers in the moonlight. Run! David shouted, adrenaline surging. They all sprinted in different directions, the werewolf snapping at their heels. Dad, over here! Daniel shouted, ducking behind a fallen log. David followed, his pulse racing. We need a plan, Daniel gasped, glancing at the creature that prowled like a shadow, searching for them. Distract it. I'll flank it from the side, David said. He grabbed a nearby rock and hurled it into the underbrush. The werewolf turned, its attention drawn, and for a split second, Daniel saw his father's chance. With a quick breath, he raised his rifle and took aim. Now, Dad! Yelled Daniel. And as the creature lunged, David fired. The crack of the gunshot echoed, reverberating through the trees. The werewolf howled, and sound that chilled their very bones, and staggered back. It turned and fled, disappearing into the dark undergrowth. They stood in silence, hearts pounding, the echoes of the night settling around them. Did we scare it off? Sheriff Cloud finally asked, his voice a mix of disbelief and relief. I think so, Daniel said, lowering the rifle, adrenaline still coursing through his veins. But we need to keep watch. It won't stop until it's satisfied. David nodded, his gaze fixed on the shadows where the creature had vanished. We'll be ready. This isn't over yet. The moon hung high, a silent witness to their resolve. And of course, the hunt was just beginning. And those are 3 werewolf stories, written by me, told by me. Thank you for listening, and many blessings.